You have to hand it to Home Minister Amit Shah. Only he could have had the chutzpah to come to the Rajya Sabha and spend an hour praising Narendra Modi's supposedly brilliant handling of the situation in Jammu and Kashmir, when the only reason he was addressing the House was because his government's policies in the state have been a complete and utter failure. I'm talking here about the breakdown of law and order in the state, which has led to the repeated postponement of assembly elections. First, the Election Commission, with the centre's concurrence, decided that it would be too dangerous to hold the assembly polls at the same time as the Lok Sabha elections earlier this year. And now once again, law and order issues are being trotted out in order to justify the extension of President's rule, which is why Amit Shah wanted the Rajya Sabha's endorsement. So why is this delay such a big deal? Keep watching. The fact is that not since 1996 have militancy and terrorism in the state come in the way of assembly elections being held. Whether the insurgency was at a high or low level in a given year or quarter, elections were held like clockwork in 2002, 2008 and 2014. So if militancy today is at a level where elections cannot be held, what does that tell us about the policies of the Narendra Modi government and its overall competence? The answer is not flattering. More soldiers and paramilitary jawans are getting killed today in militant attacks than before. Don't take my word for it. Here's what the government told Parliament earlier this year. In 2014, the total number of terrorist incidents in the state was 222. In 2018, the number was 614. In 2014, the total number of security personnel killed was 47. Last year, that jumped up to 91. In 2014, 28 civilians were killed in terrorist incidents. In 2018, this was 38. We also know that more local youths are joining the ranks of various extremist outfits than ever before. And judging by the number of militants killed, their ranks are clearly growing too. To make matters worse, the state lacks a representative government and elections are nowhere on the horizon. Public alienation in the valley, as judged by the low turnout in the Lok Sabha and even the Panchayat elections that Amit Shah tom-tommed, is at the highest level ever. For example, in 70% of Panchayat halkas last year, there was no polling at all. Let's pause for a moment and ask ourselves what Modi is doing wrong. The BJP and the RSS have long believed that the root of the Kashmir problem lies in New Delhi appeasing separatist sentiment and not in the callous manner with which successive governments at the centre have tread upon the rights of the people of the state. What rights am I talking about? Well, their basic human rights to begin with, and of course their constitutionally mandated right to a high level of autonomy. The BJP thinks all talk of human rights and autonomy is quote-unquote anti-national, and that there is no need for any internal political process that can win over diverse stakeholders, including those with separatist leanings. The irony is that when the BJP joined hands with the PDP in 2015, it actually committed itself to talking to the Hurriyat and others. The Agenda for Alliance document, which the BJP's Ram Madhav negotiated in March 2015 with the late Mufti Muhammad Saeed, said, and I quote, "The earlier NDA government led by Shri Atal Bihari Vajpayee had initiated a dialogue process with all political groups, including the Hurriyat Conference, in the spirit of Insaniyat, Kashmiriyat or Jamhuriyat. Following the same principles, the coalition government will facilitate and help initiate a sustained and meaningful dialogue with all internal stakeholders, which will include all political groups irrespective of their ideological views and predilections. This dialogue will seek to build a broad-based consensus on resolution of all outstanding issues of J&K." Close quotes. Having signed on the dotted line, however, the BJP did nothing to implement this and the other commitments contained in that document. Instead, it pushed for a military-oriented solution to the problem of unrest in the state and continued to question the need for Article 370 and Article 35A of the Constitution, which grant special status to Jammu and Kashmir. Finally, in June 2018, the BJP pulled the plug on the coalition. Elections should have been held soon after, but the party thought it might be able to engineer defections from the PDP and form the government by itself or in partnership with Sajjad Loan. That's why it placed the state under governor's rule. When it became apparent that forming a government in the state would not be so easy, Prime Minister Modi again chose direct rule from the centre. Thus, President's rule was imposed in December 2018. And now, it's just been extended again for another 6 months. Amit Shah this week also pushed through the Rajya Sabha the extension of reservation benefits to people living close to the border with Pakistan in Kashmir. Now, by itself, this provision is not controversial, but what people in the state have objected to is the further undermining of Article 370 that it involved. Now, the article says that central laws can only apply with the concurrence of the government of the state. And this should really mean the concurrence of an elected government of the state. Remember, right now, J&K is under central rule. Now, Shah brushed aside objections about the future of Article 370 by declaring that it is a temporary provision. The fact is that Shah has not bothered to come up to speed with what the Supreme Court has been saying on the so-called temporary nature of Article 370. In a 2016 judgment, Justice Rohinton Nariman of the Supreme Court wrote that, quote, despite the fact that it is stated to be temporary in nature, sub-clause 3 of Article 370 makes it clear that this article shall cease to be operative only from such date as the President may by public notification declare, and this cannot be done under the proviso to Article 373 unless there is a recommendation of the Constituent Assembly of the state so to do, unquote. And the fact is, of course, that the Constituent Assembly of the state no longer exists. This is why Article 370 has acquired permanent space in the Constitution and cannot be abrogated, Justice Nariman said in 2018 while reiterating his earlier judgment. Now, what about Article 35A? It essentially firewalls the state's laws on who can be a permanent resident and what special rights they can enjoy. And these rights are firewalled from legal challenge. The fact is that successive governments have used this article to deny domicile rights to Kashmiri women who marry outside the state and also to perpetrate a terrible injustice on the Valmiki community of Jammu. But these injustices can and should be remedied through state-level changes in laws and rules and do not actually require Article 35A to be repealed. In any case, several states, Sikkim, Arunachal Pradesh, Himachal and Uttarakhand, for example, use permanent residency as a lever to prevent outsiders from enjoying certain rights in the state, such as the purchase of agricultural land. So what sense would it make to deny only Jammu and Kashmir the right to make rules for permanent residents? The fact is that the BJP regards Article 35A as the thin end of the wedge which can be used to prise open Article 370. Perhaps demographic changes are what the party has in mind, but even this is a chimera, a pipe dream. Amit Shah spoke passionately about the plight of the Kashmiri Pandits who were driven out of their homeland by militancy, but was unable to tell Parliament what his government has done in the past 5 years to bring them back home. So if you've not been able to get the poor Kashmiri Pandits to resettle there, what makes you think you can pack the valley with settlers from, say, Gujarat? I began this video by describing the first 5 years of Narendra Modi's policies in Jammu and Kashmir as an utter failure. If he and Amit Shah carry on in this wonderland and then plunge us all down the rabbit hole of abrogating Article 35A and 370, the situation will only get worse. Much, much worse.